You know what Muhammad Ali said? He said, "I hated every minute of training, but I said, don't quit, suffer now and live the rest of your life as a champion." That man understood something that most people will never understand. The suffering isn't the problem. The suffering is the pathway. The suffering is what transforms you from who you are into who you need to become. Everything is possible. Not because I'm standing here telling you some fairy tale. Because I've seen it. I've watched people who had every reason to fail turn their entire life around. I've watched people who came from nothing build empires. I've watched people who were told they'd never make it prove everyone wrong. And you want to know the secret? There is no secret. They just refuse to accept the limitations everyone else accepted. Steve Jobs said it perfectly. He said, "The people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do." You hear that? Crazy enough, because to everyone else, you're going to look crazy. When you're working at midnight while they're sleeping, when you're studying while they're partying, when you're building while they're relaxing, they're going to think you've lost your mind. Good. Let them think that, because while they're judging you, you're becoming someone they can never touch. Everything is possible when you understand that your current reality is not your destiny. It's just your starting point. Rocky Balboa said, "It ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. And life is going to hit you. It's going to knock you down. It's going to make you question everything. But the question isn't whether you're going to get hit. The question is, what are you going to do when you do?" Most people get hit once and they're done. They take one failure and they turn it into their whole identity. I tried and it didn't work. Yeah. How many times did you try? Once? Twice? Thomas Edison failed 10,000 times before he invented the light bulb. 10,000 times. And when someone asked him about it, you know what he said? "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." That's not optimism. That's a warrior mentality. That's refusing to let circumstances define you. Everything is possible when you stop living for comfort and start living for purpose. Bruce Lee said, "A goal is not always meant to be reached. It often serves simply as something to aim at. But most of you aren't even aiming. You're just drifting. You're letting life happen to you instead of happening to life. You're reacting instead of creating. You're surviving instead of thriving. And I get it. I understand. It's scary to want something. It's terrifying to put yourself out there and risk failing. It's easier to play it safe. It's easier to stay small. It's easier to blend in. But you weren't made to blend in. You weren't made to be average. You weren't made to live a life of quiet desperation where you go to bed every night wondering what could have been." Winston Churchill stood in front of his nation during the darkest hour and said, "Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. The courage to continue. Not when things are easy. Not when you're winning. When everything is falling apart. When the walls are closing in. When every rational voice is telling you to quit. That's when courage matters. That's when character is built. Everything is possible when you embrace the grind. When you fall in love with the process instead of just chasing the result." Kobe Bryant said, "Everything negative, pressure, challenges, is all an opportunity for me to rise." That man got up at 4 in the morning. 4 in the morning. While everyone else was sleeping, he was working. While everyone else was comfortable, he was pushing himself to the limit. And you know what happened? He became one of the greatest to ever do it. Not because he was lucky, because he was obsessed. You think greatness just happens? You think champions are born? No, they're forged. They're created in the moments when nobody's watching. In the early mornings, in the late nights, in the repetitions that nobody sees, in the sacrifices that nobody appreciates. That's where legends are made. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison. 27 years. And when he got out, he could have been bitter. He could have been angry. He could have sought revenge. But instead, he said, "The greatest glory in living lies not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall." He chose to rise. He chose to build instead of destroy. He chose purpose over pain. Everything is possible when you decide that your past doesn't get to dictate your future. I don't care where you came from. I don't care what you've been through. I don't care how many times you've failed or how many people told you that you weren't good enough. Michael Jordan got cut from his high school basketball team. Michael Jordan, the greatest basketball player of all time, didn't make his high school team. And he used that rejection as fuel. He said, "I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I've failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed." You hear that? That's why he succeeds. Not in spite of failure, because of it. Failure is the tuition you pay for success. Failure is the education. Failure is what teaches you what doesn't work so you can find out what does. But most people can't handle failure. They take it personally. They let it break them. They let it convince them that they're not good enough. Everything is possible when you understand that your mistakes don't define you. Your response to them does. Will Smith said, "There's no reason to have a plan B because it distracts from plan A. You need to burn the boats. You need to go all in. You need to commit so fully to what you're building that failure isn't even an option. Not because you're guaranteed to succeed, because you're willing to die trying. That's the mentality. That's what separates the dreamers from the doers. Dreamers talk about what they're going to do. Doers show up every single day and do the work even when they don't feel like it, even when it's hard, even when nobody's cheering for them. Arnold Schwarzenegger came to America with nothing, couldn't speak English, had no connections, no money, just a dream to be the greatest bodybuilder in the world, and people laughed at him. They said his accent was too thick. They said his body was too big. They said he'd never make it in Hollywood. And you know what he did? He proved every single one of them wrong. He said, "Strength does not come from winning. Your struggles develop your strengths. When you go through hardships and decide not to surrender, that is strength. Everything is possible when you decide that other people's opinions don't matter more than your vision." Henry Ford said, "Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Your belief determines your reality. If you believe you're limited, you'll find evidence of that everywhere. If you believe you're capable of anything, you'll find evidence of that instead. So what do you believe about yourself? Do you believe you're someone who starts things and doesn't finish them? Do you believe you're someone who had potential but wasted it? Do you believe you're someone who's going to look back with regret? Or do you believe you're someone who's going to change the game? Someone who's going to build something remarkable? Someone who's going to make an impact? Maya Angelou said, "You may not control all the events that happen to you, but you can decide not to be reduced by them. Life is going to knock you down. That's not a maybe. That's a guarantee. You're going to face rejection. You're going to face failure. You're going to face pain. But you get to choose whether that breaks you or builds you. Everything is possible when you understand that discipline is destiny." Jocko Willink said, "Discipline equals freedom." And people don't get that. They think discipline is restrictive. They think it's about denying yourself. But it's the opposite. Discipline is what gives you freedom. The discipline to wake up early gives you freedom with your time. The discipline to work out gives you freedom with your health. The discipline to save money gives you freedom with your finances. Your daily habits are either creating the life you want or destroying it. There's no in between. Every choice you make is either moving you closer to your goals or further away from them. Every time you hit snooze instead of getting up, every time you scroll instead of working, every time you make an excuse instead of making progress, you're voting for who you're becoming. And right now, if you're honest with yourself, who are you voting for? Are you voting for the champion, or are you voting for the person who almost made it, the person who had potential, the person who talked a big game but never backed it up? Theodore Roosevelt said, "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. Everything is possible when you get in the arena, when you stop watching from the stands, when you stop being a spectator in your own life, when you get your hands dirty and you actually try. Because here's what I know, you're going to fail, you're going to make mistakes, you're going to look foolish sometimes, but at least you'll be in the game, at least you'll be trying, at least when it's all said and done, you'll know you gave it everything you had." Les Brown said, "Shoot for the moon. Even if you miss, you'll land among the stars." But most people aren't even shooting. They're not even trying. They're living safe little lives where they never risk anything and they never gain anything. They're dying slowly in jobs they hate, in relationships that drain them, in lives that feel like prisons. Everything is possible when you decide that you'd rather die trying than live wondering. Socrates said, "The unexamined life is not worth living." And I'm asking you right now to examine your life. Look at it honestly. Are you proud of what you see? Are you becoming who you want to become? Or are you settling? Are you making excuses? Are you playing small because it's safe? You've got one life, one shot at this, one chance to see what you're really capable of, and you can spend it playing it safe, or you can spend it going all in on your dreams. You can spend it comfortable, or you can spend it building something that matters. Walt Disney was fired from a newspaper for lacking imagination. He went bankrupt multiple times. His first animation company failed, and he kept going. He said, "All our dreams can come true if we have the courage to pursue them." That's the key word. Courage. Not certainty, not comfort. Courage. Everything is possible when you have the courage to bet on yourself. When you have the courage to walk away from what's killing you even if you don't know what's next. When you have the courage to start over. When you have the courage to admit you were wrong and change direction. When you have the courage to stand alone if that's what it takes. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy." Who are you when things get hard? Who are you when nobody's watching? Who are you when you could quit and nobody would blame you? That's who you really are. That's your character. Everything is possible when you build character instead of just chasing success. Because success without character is just empty achievement. It's hollow. It doesn't satisfy. You can have everything and feel nothing if you don't like who you became to get it. But if you build character, if you become someone of integrity, someone of discipline, someone who keeps their word, someone who shows up, someone who finishes what they start, someone who treats people right, someone who does the right thing even when it costs them, that's success. That's victory. That's what you take with you. Vince Lombardi said, "The price of success is hard work, dedication to the job at hand, and the determination that whether we win or lose, we have applied the best of ourselves to the task at hand. The best of ourselves, not half effort, not when we feel like it, the best." Everything is possible when you give your best to everything you do, when you refuse to be mediocre, when you refuse to mail it in, when you treat every moment like it matters because it does. Every conversation, every workout, every task, every choice, it all matters. It's all building something, and you don't know which moment is going to be the one that changes everything. You don't know which connection leads to the opportunity. You don't know which workout builds the habit that transforms your body. You don't know which decision creates the momentum that changes your life. So you treat them all like they matter. Denzel Washington said, "Dreams without goals remain dreams, just dreams, and ultimately fuel disappointment. Goals on the road to achievement cannot be achieved without discipline and consistency. You need both. You need the dream to inspire you, and you need the discipline to build it. You need the vision to pull you forward, and you need the habits to get you there. Everything is possible when you marry your dreams with your discipline, when you stop just wishing and start working, when you stop just hoping and start doing, when you stop waiting for the perfect moment and you make this moment perfect by what you do with it." Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "What lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us. Everything you need is already inside you. All the strength, all the courage, all the potential. It's already there. You just have to access it. You just have to believe it. You just have to act on it. Everything is possible because you're possible. Because you're here. Because you're breathing. Because you have another chance. Another day. Another opportunity to become who you're supposed to become." Gandhi said, "Be the change you wish to see in the world. Start with yourself. Transform yourself. Become the person you admire. Build the character you respect. Live the life you're proud of. And watch how everything else falls into place. Everything is possible when you stop making excuses and start making history. Your story, your legacy. The one you're writing right now with every choice you make, with every action you take, with every moment you either rise or you settle. So rise. Rise like you were meant to. Rise like there's something in you that refuses to die. Rise like you understand that this is your one shot and you're not going to waste it. Rise like a champion, like a warrior, like someone who knows that everything is possible because you're the one making it possible. You see, there's this thing that happens when you finally commit, when you finally stop playing around and you get serious about your life. The whole universe starts to shift. Opportunities that weren't there before suddenly appear. People who can help you show up. Resources you didn't know existed become available. But none of that happens until you make the decision, until you draw the line in the sand and say, this is it. This is where my old life ends and my new life begins. Jim Rohn said, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Look around you right now. Who's in your circle? Are they lifting you up or dragging you down? Are they pushing you to be better or making excuses for why you're not? Because if you want to know where your life is headed, just look at the people closest to you. They're either helping you build or helping you stay stuck. Everything is possible when you get ruthless about who gets access to you. When you understand that your time is the most valuable thing you have and you stop giving it away to people who don't appreciate it. When you stop entertaining relationships that drain you. When you stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You've got to protect your energy like it's the most precious resource on earth. Because it is. You can make more money. You can't make more time. You can replace things. You can't replace the mental and emotional energy that gets wasted on people and situations that don't deserve it. Elon Musk works 100 hours a week. 100 hours. And people say he's crazy. People say he's obsessed. And he is. He's obsessed with changing the world. He's obsessed with pushing humanity forward. He's obsessed with doing things that people say are impossible. And you know what he said? When something is important enough, you do it even if the odds are not in your favor. Everything is possible when you care about something more than you care about being comfortable. When you have a mission that's bigger than your fear. When you have a vision that pulls you forward even when everything in you wants to quit. Most people don't have that. Most people are just going through the motions. They wake up, they go to work, they come home, they watch television, they go to sleep, and they do it again the next day, and the next, and the next, until one day they wake up and they're 60 years old and they realize they never actually lived. They just existed. Is that what you want? Is that the life you're building? Because if it is, fine, but be honest about it. Stop pretending you're going to do something different someday. Stop pretending you're going to start that business or write that book or get in shape or travel the world. Either do it or admit that you're choosing comfort over growth. Confucius said, we have 2 lives, and the second begins when we realize we only have one. When are you going to realize it? When you're 40? When you're 50? When you're 70 and it's too late to do anything about it? Or are you going to realize it right now while you still have time to do something about it? Everything is possible when you understand that time is running out. Not to scare you, but to wake you up. To make you understand that every day you waste is a day you'll never get back. Every opportunity you pass on might not come around again. Every dream you postpone might die before you get around to it. Look, I know this sounds harsh. I know this isn't the motivational speech where I tell you that you're perfect just the way you are and that everything's going to work out. Because that's a lie. Everything's not going to work out unless you make it work out. You're not perfect just the way you are. None of us are. We're all works in progress. We're all building something. And the question is whether you're building towards something great or building toward regret. Jack Ma failed his college entrance exam twice. He applied to 30 different jobs and got rejected by all of them. He applied to Harvard 10 times and got rejected every single time. And now he's one of the richest people in the world. He said, never give up. Today is hard. Today is hard. Tomorrow will be worse, but the day after tomorrow will be sunshine. Everything is possible when you understand that your current struggle is creating your future strength, that every rejection is redirection, that every failure is feedback, that every setback is setting you up for a comeback. But you have to keep going. You have to keep pushing. You have to refuse to let circumstances define you. You have to look at the mountain in front of you and decide that you're going to climb it no matter how long it takes, no matter how hard it gets. No matter how many times you fall. Because here's what happens when you do that. You become someone different. You become someone stronger. You become someone who other people look at and say, how did they do that? And the answer is always the same. One step at a time. One day at a time. One decision at a time. Colonel Sanders was 65 years old when he started KFC. 65. Living off a small social security check. And he took his chicken recipe, and he drove around the country getting rejected over 1,000 times before someone finally said yes. He said, "I made a resolve then that I was going to amount to something if I could, and no hours, nor amount of labor, nor amount of money would deter me from giving the best that there was in me." Everything is possible when you refuse to use your age as an excuse, when you refuse to use your circumstances as an excuse, when you refuse to use anything as an excuse, when you just decide that you're going to make it happen no matter what. I've watched people transform themselves in their 30s, their 40s, their 50s, their 60s. I've watched people who were broke become millionaires. I've watched people who were overweight get in the best shape of their lives. I've watched people who were depressed find purpose and meaning. I've watched people who were alone build amazing relationships, and every single one of them will tell you the same thing. It started with a decision. It started with them saying enough is enough. It started with them deciding that they deserved better than what they were settling for. Tony Robbins said, "It's in your moments of decision that your destiny is shaped, not your moments of comfort, not your moments of ease, your moments of decision. When you choose, when you commit, when you say this is who I'm going to be and this is what I'm going to do." Everything is possible when you make decisions based on your goals instead of your feelings. When you understand that feelings are temporary, but results are permanent. When you do what needs to be done even when you don't feel like doing it. You think successful people always feel motivated? You think they always feel inspired? They don't. They have days where they're tired, days where they're discouraged, days where they question everything, but they show up anyway. They do the work anyway. They keep moving anyway, because they understand something fundamental. Motivation is great when you have it, but discipline is what carries you when you don't. Discipline is what separates professionals from amateurs. Discipline is what turns dreams into reality. David Goggins said, "You will never learn from people if you always tap dance around the truth." So here's the truth. You're not going to feel like doing the work most of the time. You're not going to feel motivated. You're not going to feel inspired. And if you're waiting to feel that way, you're going to be waiting forever. Everything is possible when you stop waiting to feel ready and you just start. When you stop overthinking and you take action. When you stop planning and you execute. Because perfect plans don't mean anything if you never implement them. Perfect timing doesn't exist. Perfect conditions don't exist. There's just now and what you do with it. Look at Oprah. She was born into poverty. She was abused. She was told she wasn't pretty enough for television. And she became one of the most influential people on the planet. She said, "The biggest adventure you can take is to live the life of your dreams." Everything is possible when you understand that your story isn't written yet, that your past doesn't determine your future, that where you came from doesn't determine where you're going, that what happened to you doesn't determine what happens through you. You get to choose. You get to decide. You get to write the next chapter. And it doesn't matter if the first 20 chapters were terrible. Chapter 21 can be different. It can be better. It can be the beginning of everything you've been waiting for, but only if you make it that way. Only if you take responsibility for your life. Only if you stop blaming and start building. Only if you stop complaining and start creating. Zig Ziglar said, "You don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. Start messy. Start scared. Start without all the answers. Just start, because starting is what separates the people who make it from the people who don't. Everything is possible when you take that first step, when you apply for that job, when you start that business, when you join that gym, when you have that conversation, when you make that call, when you take action on the thing you've been thinking about for years. And yeah, it might not work out. You might fail. You might look foolish, but you might also succeed. You might also build something amazing. You might also become someone you're proud of. And isn't that worth the risk? J.K. Rowling was a single mother living on welfare when she wrote Harry Potter. She was rejected by 12 different publishers before someone finally took a chance on her. And now she's one of the most successful authors in history. She said, "It is impossible to live without failing at something, unless you live so cautiously that you might as well not have lived at all." Everything is possible when you embrace failure as part of the journey. When you understand that every successful person failed multiple times before they made it. When you see rejection not as the end but as part of the process. Thomas Jefferson failed in politics before he became president. Abraham Lincoln lost 8 elections before he won. Steven Spielberg was rejected from film school 3 times. The Beatles were told they had no future in music. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team. You think any of them would have made it if they quit after the first failure, the first rejection, the first setback? They wouldn't have. They made it because they kept going. They kept trying. They kept believing even when nobody else did. Everything is possible when you believe in yourself more than you believe in your doubts. When you trust your vision more than you trust your fear. When you commit to your dreams more than you commit to your comfort. And I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I'm saying it's going to be worth it. I'm saying that when you're 80 years old looking back on your life, you're not going to regret the things you tried and failed at. You're going to regret the things you never tried at all. You're going to regret playing it safe. You're going to regret not taking the chance. You're going to regret not betting on yourself. You're going to regret listening to people who told you it wasn't possible instead of listening to yourself. Bob Dylan said, "What's money? A man is a success if he gets up in the morning and goes to bed at night, and in between does what he wants to do. That's success." Living life on your terms, building something that matters to you, becoming someone you respect. Everything is possible when you define success for yourself instead of letting society define it for you. When you stop chasing what other people want and start building what you want. When you stop trying to impress people who don't matter and start trying to become someone who does. Your life is yours. Your dreams are yours. Your potential is yours. And what you do with all of that is up to you. Nobody else can live your life for you. Nobody else can chase your dreams for you. Nobody else can become who you're supposed to become. That's your job. That's your responsibility. That's your calling. Albert Einstein said, "The woman who follows the crowd will usually go no further than the crowd. The woman who walks alone is likely to find herself in places no one has ever been before." You've got to be willing to walk alone sometimes. You've got to be willing to be misunderstood. You've got to be willing to go against the grain. Everything is possible when you stop following and start leading. When you stop copying and start creating. When you stop living someone else's dream and start building your own.